Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Vijay Jagannath. I'm a senior consultant in anesthesia and also the Associate Director of Medical Education from Qatar. And welcome to this panel on one of the most important conversations in modern healthcare, integrating AI in healthcare, caution versus rapid adoption. So in 83% of medical groups or expanding their use of AI, almost double the number, 23. So this pace is extraordinary. With speed comes responsibility as well. And AI is no longer a future concept. It is already influencing diagnosis, scheduling, reporting, triage, and patient outcomes. And in many cases, it has entered our clinical workflows very quietly. So healthcare has always adopted innovations cautiously, guided by clinical evidence, training, and professional standards. Yet with AI, we are seeing tools deployed before clinicians are fully trained, governance structures are mature, or ethical questions are fully addressed. So today, our goal is not to say yes or no to AI. Our goal is to explore how we adopt it at a pace that brings benefit, ensures safety, protects trust, and prepares our workforce with the right competencies. We have an outstanding panel with expertise across clinical practice, technology, policy, ethics, and innovation. So I'm looking forward to an honest, practical conversation about benefits, risks, and the pathway to responsible integration. So let me set the stage. My question is, to all the panel members, from your perspective, is the current pace of AI adoption appropriate? And what do you see as the primary force driving this acceleration? Is it genuine clinical need? Or is it financial pressure? Or is it drive for innovation? Or is it influence from industry? What is your thought?
Hello, everyone. And thank you for this introduction. Well, I believe AI, it's coming. It's a wave of new development. It's coming towards us, towards the healthcare domain, and we just have to ask ourselves the questions: are we going to be crushed by this wave of technology, or are we going to be able to surf it? So the answer really, or the question is not really whether we're going to, implement it fast or slow. The question is whether we're going to have governance over this technology, because we, as healthcare professionals, really, we should be able to govern the way this technology is implemented in the hospitals, in the healthcare settings, before it governs us. Because the risk here really is a transfer of power between, from the healthcare providers to the corporations, and we can't really accept that because we're bound by our oath and by our ethics. So really, we shouldn't really be against this technology. I mean, as I said, it's coming. We just need to be able to control it. So and the benefits of it are outstanding. You know, there's massive benefits to this technology. It will most likely improve efficiency, performance. It will most likely help us reduce our rate of errors in the long term. So there is a huge benefit to this technology. However, we should be also aware of the drawbacks, of the risks, of the possible complications. So, for example, the black box problem, the transparency, the explainability. There is something called algorithmic bias, where those tools are trained on a certain set of patient data that not necessarily is reflecting the actual population. So there's many things that can happen in the background that maybe clinicians are not aware of. So really, we need a framework around this technology. As you rightfully said at the introduction, we're not against the technology. Healthcare has seen many revolutions in time. What we need to be aware of is the governance framework around this. And that's why we developed the International Society of Medical AI, where we have a forum where clinicians, as long as policymakers, the key decision makers, and developers as well, meet to discuss this topic, and where we focus on how are we going to implement this, how are we going to create a governance framework around this technology for safe implementation. And among those topics, obviously, there's preparedness, staff preparedness, hospital preparedness, internal frameworks, governance readiness inside the hospitals and outside the hospitals. So I'm looking forward for the discussion with our colleagues here, because I'm sure you have a lot of things to say around preparedness, staff preparedness, technology development, and governance frameworks as well.
So, anyone else wants to add? Well, what's the biggest drive for this acceleration in AI adoption at the moment?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Vijay. I think before that, I would like to say just one little comment. I think AI is like a rapidly moving train, and today or tomorrow it will stop on your whatever the workplace is. And I think it's better to be on board, because if we miss that train, I think we'll miss what's upcoming and what's already there. So I agree with Dr. Omar. AI is coming. Actually, AI is already here. I was in Chicago last week for like one of the biggest medical imaging conferences. I was so surprised to see that like almost half of the exhibition was full of AI technologies. And AI is not just now coming in software, it's more like in hardware. I saw so many like ultrasound machines, CT machines, MRIs. AI is built in on those equipment. I mean, we never thought that. I'm in a medical imaging field in like for more than 18 years. I never thought that while you are doing the ultrasound, and I really saw that with my own eyes, while you are doing the ultrasound, a pop-up comes up that this patient has a benign lesion or like a mass lesion. So I think AI is already here. We need to work on some governance part. We need to work on some biasness issues, but it's already there. And yes, we should move with caution, but rapidly. So I think that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you so much. And this is a very specific question to Mr. Nawar. With your background, how important is patient and clinician engagement before deploying an AI tool? And what is the most effective way to involve safe and acceptable implementation in healthcare?
Thank you very much, Dr. Vijay. I think clinician engagement is extremely an important factor in the not in terms of the speed, but rather in the alignment of the healthcare organizations with the implementation of AI. One of the things that sometimes lead us to think that it's coming too fast is the fact that we're not ready for it. We have not laid the groundwork in our organizations to be ready for AI adoption. So our competency-based assessments are not there yet. Our clinicians are not engaged from the start. Our patients don't know that AI is being utilized as a part of their care, or don't know how it is being utilized. So we don't have that full transparency. Our governance structures are not there yet. And definitely the regulators also play a part of it, because they also need to be a partner in all of this implementation. So the clinician engagement is extremely important, and I think it starts from the development phase. So co-creation with the clinicians is an important part of things. The other thing is engagement of the entire organization, not only those who are at the point of care where we're utilizing AI. We need to engage the entire organization of what it is, what we're using it for, what are the limits, what are the safety features, and what are the safety red zones that we're looking at? How can we tell that there is a problem? And that's very important, because if we can't tell there is a problem, then it goes back to the fact that it's a black box, and even in a concept, even from a concept point of view. And in healthcare, we all know that that's a very dangerous zone. So we need to know how to detect problems when they happen. We need to have systems in place that audits problems. We need to have the human in the loop from the very start. We need to have tiered education levels at different levels of the organization, from across the organization, for leaders, as well as, of course, for those who are engaged directly in the implementation of AI. So all of those things are very important. But on top of that, we also need to engage our patients. And we need to understand how we can do that engagement in a way that provides them with simple yet effective information and not take the choice from them. So I think that's extremely important.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Nawar. I fully agree with your views. With my education hat, we would not allow a clinician to perform a procedure, prescribe a drug, or use tool without proper supervision and assessment and check their competencies. Right?
Absolutely.
So AI shouldn't be any different, especially when it heavily influences diagnosis, treatment, and also the patient outcomes. And I think adoption without education is not innovation from my point of view, it's abdication of responsibility. Okay, so I fully agree with your points. Now, Dr. Omar, you're a clinician. So what safeguards are most critical in high-risk areas, such as intensive care or emergency care or radiology, to ensure the clinicians maintain sound judgment and do not overly rely on AI? Yes.
Well, this is a common question, and it's been the topic of discussions at high level, especially at the European Union and WHO level. In fact, the European Union has developed a framework. It's called the EU AI Act, where the technology, especially when used in those high-risk areas, it's highly regulated, really, because of course, in those areas where you mentioned radiology earlier, it's very tempting to have a tool where you just, plug in the X-ray or the CT scan, and it just tells you what it is, right? It's very tempting. But what are the drawbacks of that? There's so many hidden risks. Of course, there is the explainability problem. The machine gives you an answer, but you don't really know how it got to that conclusion. We know that it's trained on a database, but again, the database can be biased. So the database we should have access to, but it's a black box. And then, there is a problem of this data being processed in clouds that are owned by corporations. So there's also a patient data, problem there. And at the end of the day, when you have these high-risk entities like ICU, X-rays, or emergency department, the decision-making is critical, and you cannot delegate your clinical decision-making to a machine, because then you enter a liability problem. You enter a liability problem where, if you have made a mistake, if you made an error in judgment, then who is it really liable? Is it you as the clinician who's taking the blame, or is the corporation behind the AI algorithm, or is the hospital? So there's a problem with liability there, right? And at the end of the day, we always have to see and to put the patient at the center. The patient is always at the center. So you wouldn't want to have your mother or your family member being dealt with by a machine without having the human in the loop. So the human has always to be involved in the loop, and the human has always the clinical judgment, the empathy, and the experience to judge together with the machine. We're not against the technology. We have to be working with the technology to have a better experience. So there's a lot of regulations around it, and we have to be cautious. Yes, we have to implement it fast. I agree with you, doctor. However, we always have to see it from the patient perspective. We cannot, as you said, start using a technology before vetting the technology, before ensuring it's safe ethical, and dignified.
Mr. Zafar, I'd like to ask about the implementation realities. So many organizations, they want AI, but they may lack the data, workflows, or IT readiness. What are the key operational challenges that you anticipate? And how can AI avoid adding administrative burden or even alert fatigue? For example, if you have too many frequent, low value alerts, that can desensitize people and that can ignore the alerts and that can put the patients to risk. So, what's your thought?
That's a very good topic of discussion. So we have implemented several AI solutions lately, and they are actually working well. So I think I have a list of some like a lesson learned. My first lesson learned is the team. The team is very, very important who are delivering or working on any of the AI projects. And AI, to be honest, in my opinion, is not an IT thing. It has nothing to do with IT. It's purely clinical. Is as far as you are implementing in a healthcare, it's purely clinical, because it's the clinicians who actually give you the data. That's our second point. Once your team is formed, the next point for any successful AI implementation is data. And that's where the biasness comes in, what Dr. Umar was mentioning. You need to know what you are actually going to achieve from any of the AI implementation, and data is the one that sets the stage. So data is very important. Sometimes biasness is good, but it depends where you are implementing. For example, we are a pediatric hospital, and most of our vendors, they approached us, and when we asked them where you trained this model, and most of the models were trained on adult imaging, which is like 18 plus, and that doesn't work for us. We actually tried a couple of solutions, and that's a very good companies, but they failed miserably. So that's very important that you know what your data is and you know what your outcome is. So the team is very important and the data is very important. And once you have the data, the annotation of the data, the pre-processing of the data, the cleaning of the data is also very, very important in order to get the best of the results. So once you have the data and once you have the team, another important step is to decide, okay, are you going to have a commercial solution, or you have the capability to develop your own in like an in-house solution. So we actually tried both. We had a commercial solution, and we are in process of developing our own AI algorithms. We have a very good team of data scientists and engineers. And to be honest, it's a cheap. When it comes to cost, the commercial solutions are way more expensive than building your in-house. But definitely things come to play a role, which are the governance. For example, the commercial solutions, we have FDA approval, we have CE approval, we have different ministries, different countries approval. But when your in-house comes, you may not have any kind of such approvals. But to be honest, if your clinicians agree with what AI is giving you as a result, that's your approval. And that's what they do in FDA, that's what they do in CE. So when you're forming the team, the clinicians, they play a very, very like a key role, and they are the ones who are going to give you the data, they are the ones who are going to annotate the data for you, and they are the ones who are going to validate the results for you, even if it's a commercial solution or even if it's an in-house built solution. And I guess lastly, it's important to implement those, like deployment. Where are you going to deploy those solutions? These days, we have almost every cloud provider, they provide you good GPUs. Google is one of the best. We have Amazon, we have Azure, we have Oracle Clouds, or you can even buy your in-house servers in your own data centers. But the deployment is and integration with your workflow is very, very important. The workflow part is like top of the list, where the AI is going to help you. AI cannot solve everything for you, and AI can solve nothing for you. So it's you have to decide in which workflow step AI can assist, and replacing. I was attending a keynote session last week in Chicago, and I like one of the points in a great talk, the media hype around AI. To be honest, this replacing of humans by AI, we see that 200 million jobs will be lost in 2023, 400 million jobs will be lost in 2020, like 2035. It's all fake, to be honest. It's a purely media hype. AI cannot replace any human. AI, some administrative or clerical jobs you can argue, but any decision making job, any clinical job which is related to the treatments of the patients, no AI, not even another 100 years can replace any of the humans. It can assist, and it will assist. It will assist in a very good way, and it will definitely increase the confidence of the clinicians as well. Once you have a second opinion already on your table, and you can plan your treatment accordingly, I think that's a really great for the patients and for the clinicians as well.
Thank you, Mr. Zafar. That was a good insight. Now, switching the gears a bit, this is to Dr. Pietro. So, what ethical and regulatory concerns worry you most when adopting AI in healthcare, and what governance structures should hospitals have in place before deployment?
Thank you. I think that's a very good point that we should explore. Looking at the governance structures that most hospitals nowadays have, they are completely inadequate for adopting AI and robotics with safety. There is a need for a bespoke structure, a bespoke architecture for AI governance, starting from a clear vision at the board level. We know that a lot of hospitals have deployed sandbox programs to start a piecemeal adoption of AI, but without a clear strategic vision. And then there is a need to find the right people to form a board or a panel of experts. And as our colleagues mentioned, it's not your typical IT department. We need experts in AI that understand how the algorithms work, how they can be trained, how you look inside the black box and fiddle with it. You need to have experts in information governance. You need to have experts in human ethics and clinicians, and hopefully a representative from patients and the public as well. Once you have that structure on board, you can start looking at pre-deployment checks, assess which route you want to go, sourcing the right algorithm, the right product, or develop that in-house. And you can start looking at mitigating other risks. So, for example, looking at the trainability, the training data that you can choose to reduce bias. You can look at how you manage then an ethical review of this product. You can start looking at how it performs with your local population. You can then implement performance monitoring once the product is in use. For example, you want to be able to detect when the algorithm deviates from the expected behavior before it does any damage. Implement a structure to report concerns by clinicians as soon as possible, and for the experts to be able to understand why that has happened, liaise with a company. You might want to prepare for the worst case scenario when the algorithm is completely out of control, how you shut it down and revert to manual processing without disrupting your workflows and so on. So all these escalation protocols and override mechanisms are things that currently do not exist. And then we also need an element of regulation externally. We mentioned that a lot of countries are deploying bespoke legislation about AI robotics. If we look carefully at what many countries have done, there are a lot of regulations about how you use it, but very little change in accountability rules. For example, from a clinician point of view, we are a bit in a Wild West situation in many countries where we are given products and we're told, well, if something goes wrong, the ultimate responsibility stays with you. You have to do the final check. But it's like giving us an assistant that is never trained, like having a secretary that you never can fully rely on, and you always have to double check what it's doing. We need to have that change in culture and legislation that allows a shared accountability when something goes wrong.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Pietro. So on the same issue to Mr. Ashwin, how should accountability be shared amongst clinicians, organizations, and industries when AI influences clinical decisions? And in your experience, what factors are most important for clinicians and patients to trust AI systems?
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the question. As many of the folks on the panel have already said, I think accountability is going to be a big issue. Liability is a big issue that everybody is pondering on in terms of how to incorporate AI into their day-to-day. As we see it now, the accountability portion gets spread quite evenly. The liability portion perhaps does not. We know that the industry produces these kinds of technologies, provides it to the clinicians, but at the end of the day, as many have already alluded to, the clinicians matter the most in terms of what actually happens to the patients from a treatment perspective, from an intervention perspective, guidance perspective, etc. So AI in healthcare especially is not necessarily artificial intelligence that's trying to replace doctors. I would think of it as more of an augmented intelligence helping doctors think better. And in that perspective, as one of the panelists just said, everybody is worried, at least in the news and media, that AI is going to take over jobs. I feel like AIs will not take over other people's jobs, especially in the clinical field where human touch is primarily important. It's extremely important and will remain important as long as humans exist. But doctors who are more adept with AI, clinicians who are more okay with using AI and incorporating AI are the ones who are going to take over other people's jobs, who are not. And I think that's really where we see things going. So accountability, I see it being spread between three different silos. First one is the clinicians themselves. As I mentioned, very important human in the loop, takes on a lot of the responsibilities, certainly takes on the liabilities. It has always been the case, and I think it'll continue to be the case. The next is the organization itself, the hospital or any of the clinical settings that you're going to implement these AI technologies. They will have to take on the accountability of how do they enable systematic adoption of AI into their workflow. For example, if there is an AI that has been introduced into the system, the first thing they need to explain is if the result is X, then the action should be Y. And without that sort of a clear, lines drawn to what the action needs to be, how they need to consider and interpret the results, I think it's going to be a mismanaged approach towards incorporating AI into hospital setting and clinical setting. And then the third silo I think that is really important is, of course, the industry themselves. These external regulatory bodies such as FDA, CE, and so on are there to ensure that patient safety is met, but yet on the it's like a double-edged sword for them, or rather they're between a rock and a hard place. These regulatory bodies, on the one hand, are taking care of patient safety while allowing innovations to seep through, and they technically contradict each other. So it's a very difficult place, and I sympathize with the regulatory bodies right now, especially because they have to compete with AI engineers who are being scooped up by Google and others and so on, but they have to keep up with the technologies that are being implemented. So industry has to do its part despite the lack of speed at which the regulation is catching up, they themselves are responsible to ensure that they are producing models that are trustable, and reliable. Secondly, I think in healthcare, a reinforced learning-based, continuous learning-based models might not be, at least in the near future, when I say near, I mean about 5 years, acceptable. It's going to have to be static models that show repeated performance measures over and over again. And clearly, demography is an issue. So they need to have model cards that describe this is how it was trained, this is how it's implemented, and this is how it could fail, no matter where they go, because each geography has different ways of thinking about how the models might work. And so that's where I think accountability gets shared between these three silos. Trust is a completely different aspect, I think. For me, trust almost seems like I look back when I was a young kid, before I knew how to ride a bicycle, I saw my friends riding bicycles. It looked amazing. That's how AI is. It looks amazing. But I didn't have the trust that I could balance it myself on those two wheels. So it is one of those things where you have to, at some point, decide to climb on the bicycle and start riding, fall a few times, and then build trust. And then all of a sudden, you're a world cycle champion, whatever. It becomes easier to go from point A to point B with a bicycle. So I believe the same thing is going to be very true with AI adoption in hospitals. There is going to be a sense of awe for clinicians when they see AI being demoed and shown to them. But there's also going to be a lack of trust in being able to think about, can I ride that bicycle? And so there is no other way other than the organization itself supporting the doctors and the nurses in imagining what their life could be with AI in small ways. Baby steps at first, and I'm sure it's going to take off no matter what. So that's my thought on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ashwin. So what do you all think? Is it try and fail with AI, or it should be just fully prepared?
Well, I'll jump on that quickly. Healthcare has seen many revolutions in time over the centuries, right? And we eventually embrace those technological advancements. However, like in modern times, you can't really deploy a new technology without having that tested. And that goes across the board, right? You can't really start using a new device, a new medical device, without having that, gone through multiple tests, quality tests, approvals, and frameworks and regulations and whatnot. So really, AI is another medical device at the end of the day. And so it's important to understand that it's not just, an assistant. In many cases, it's also a device or a tool that, helps you making diagnosis. And by definition, it becomes a medical device. So we have to be aware of, yes, it's beautiful, it's breathtaking. Honestly, it's a beautiful technology, and we should not be against it. We should not be against it, but we should really be aware of the possible risk. I mean, we can't play with patients. So we have to be aware, is this technology reliable? How is it deployed? Where is the data going to? Is it going into a cloud that it's used by a obscure corporation to train it on other models? So where is this patient data going? So there's a privacy concern. The outcomes, have they been validated? Are these tools being validated? Have these tools been gone through research and randomized control trial and validation, as we do with all devices, really? So those are concerns, those are real concerns, and we just have to, yes, it's beautiful, it's breathtaking, but we just have to kind of stop a second, and have a conversation. Where is this going? Can we develop a framework? And as Dr. Pietro rightfully was discussing the importance of the frameworks. And that's why at the society, the International Society of Medical AI, we're having that exact conversation. And we're developing the frameworks that are going to be used in the hospitals, the governance framework, the accountability, the audit framework, and the committee structures to be able to deploy this technology safely. So it's a big conversation, and we have to, kind of take a break, take a deep breath, and have this talk. And it's wonderful that we're here today, because honestly, this is what we need, discussing this, where this is going, and the risk of it. So yes, we should implement it. We should not be afraid of it. However, let's just be the adults in the room and consider all the possible facets of this discussion.
So I think one important aspect to say is, we're not here to say we shouldn't jump in this train, because I think the train is going whether we're jumping or not. However, I think the one important aspect is the fact that we need to move from AI adoption or implementation to AI stewardship, and think about governance, think about safety consideration, risks, how our teams are interacting with it, the human factor of things, and the human factor will extend beyond the clinicians, but also with other healthcare providers and the patient themselves and their families. So we need to think of this as a comprehensive stewardship program for all organizations that are looking into, a real and widespread implementation of AI. And this program has to be in collaboration with governance bodies, with patients and patient advocates, and with payers as well, because the payers would love to know what they're paying for and are we being efficient about it or not. So we need to have those stewardship programs implemented in order to ensure that we are on the train, but we have our seatbelt on. So that's very important. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may quickly add something, and I think that's really important. The organization in itself has to develop frameworks where you can constantly continue to monitor these AI models to ensure it is producing the results that you expected it to produce, producing the results that the industry said it would. And this is something where I think a lot of the institutions, healthcare institutions, need to put their resources towards. As one of the panelists did mention, many of the hospitals are now trying to build AI themselves, but they end up competing with talent that is very difficult to get to build a reliable, good, strong model. What should also be resource allocated towards is the fact of monitoring existing models and understanding whether it works or not. I mean, from a trust perspective, right, I used to be an academic. We used to publish on models for a decade plus now, just talking about sensitivity, specificity, PPV, workup to deterioration, and then you have to think about, oh wait, workup to deterioration, 1 over PPV. So it's just one of those things that's never intuitive. A person who's been there for 20 years doing that, it still takes me sometimes a Wikipedia page for me to remember what exactly that means and how do I put it in context of this particular medical device. And so I think the healthcare organization should come up with frameworks, put resources to keep monitoring, keep understanding, given the context of the AI and what clinical problem it's solving, what are the observed results. And that team should exist in all hospitals so that you can build trust as we move forward.
So, yeah, thank you very much for that. And what we have heard today is that AI has extraordinary potential. But we have also heard clearly that innovation without education, oversight, and ethical guardrails is not acceptable in healthcare. And the future of AI in healthcare is not about choosing between caution and rapid adoption. It's about choosing informed, responsible adoption. That means involving clinicians, educating the workforce, building transparent systems, and ensuring that patient safety remains the anchor of every technological decision. Now I'm going to open, the questions to the floor.
For any questions, you can come here next to the mic. Thank you.
Am I allowed 2 questions? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And ma'am, I'm glad that you brought the health plan. Because the last couple of days, we've been only talking about health systems and not really talking about health plans. So I'm really glad that you brought it up. My first question is, McKinsey Global AI report that got released said 88% of the organizations have started using AI. But 80% of those organizations do not see any value. And they are still stuck on that co-pilot mode. So with the adoption, this rapid adoption and the topic that we're talking about, how do we ensure that adoption and using of AI is also translated to an ROI and value?
Well, I'll jump in on this. Yeah, this is true because, I mean, the question is, and I was talking to one of the CEO of one of the biggest private hospital groups in France, and the question was, how is this technology going to give me any financial benefit? You know, because are we seeing an investment in this? There is a lot of money spent, but what is the ROI? What is the return on investment? I mean, is this really going to improve the efficiency in terms of financial gains for the hospitals? And this is a question posed by private hospital groups, really, because there's a huge investment, there's a huge money involvement. But really, if the doctor has to double check everything, then the question of efficiency and performance, it's a bit more gray. So yeah, there's a big question on that, and the answer is that the developers, and this is something that we discuss at the society often, some of the mistakes they do is that they focus on the clinical aspects of medicine. So they develop tools that they're looking at clinical, diagnostic tools, something that the doctors are very, very good at. Instead, what the developers should do is they should focus on something that the doctors are very, very bad at doing, which is time management, looking through the charts, improving the patient's flow, the patient's efficiency. So, I mean, we are tired of looking through the charts or, summarizing patients, discharge outcomes, or reviewing or going through medical histories. Instead, those things are very, very easy to do by a machine. So the machine can help in that regard. So the machine should focus on improving the efficiency where the efficiency is lacking in terms of medical flow, instead of focusing on what the doctors are really good at, which is diagnosis. So doctors are good at that, so leave us alone. Instead, you should focus on the paperwork. And that's where you see the return on investment.
Thank you very much.
Just
Any
wanted
further
to add
questions?
Sorry, Vijay. I just wanted to add one thing. We have fantastic technology called ambient technology that can help also with documentation and summarizing and generating correspondence and having legal proof documentation that will never be as good as what we can produce as human beings. So focusing on what can really help the organization first before we go into the nitty-gritty of what we're already doing well. I totally agree with Omar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My second question is more regarding to the health plan. With all of the AI being adopted within the health system, obviously the coding is getting better, right? The coding intensity has improved. How does the coding intensity impact the reimbursement and compliance on a health plan standpoint? Because now with AI, with autonomous coding, your entire NLP to read all these documents and ensuring that the coding goes and the claims are being submitted correctly, how does that impact the reimbursement? Because the coding intensity has really gone up. So how does a health plan prepare to ensure that the coding intensity is being taken care of, ensuring that the reimbursement and compliances are in place?
Mr. Ashwin?
Yeah, I can touch on that. I think we spoke a lot about the institutional healthcare side, the hospitals and the doctors and such. We are expecting them to take on AI and make it a part of their life. What you bring up is a very important aspect, which is, I think, 1/3 of healthcare, which is insurance side, right? And so they also need to start figuring out how to utilize healthcare. And tying it back to what Dr. Omar said, don't help us do things that we're already good at. I think the insurance might want to see that part a little more on the AI side, if I might say so. Because I think the insurance companies think if there is an error on judgment side from the doctors, from the nurses, I would like to know before I reimburse that patient for it. Or if there is unnecessary treatments being provided or treatments, and this I'm talking about a global scale, it's a problem. It certainly is. And certain kinds of things, insurance would like to know about it. So if there is an insurance-driven mandate for hospitals to also start thinking about clinical outcomes through AI and improvement of clinical outcomes through AI, then I think you're seeing that sort of road meet in the middle. On the one side, you have doctors and nurses and hospital administrators saying, we need to be AI friendly, we need to be AI forward. On the other hand, you have the insurance company also saying, yes, you need to start adopting AI to improve outcomes. And I think ultimately who ends up benefiting is the patient. But certainly governance, everything has to catch up. We are not there yet. AI seems to be moving faster than other fields, in other fields than in healthcare. But in healthcare, because of regulation, there is that bottleneck for innovation, which I think is a good thing. And so the clinical adoption of AI will take longer than other fields. But by then, governance structures, etc., should have caught up.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Renee Anand. My background spans chemical quantum physics, genomics, and medicine. I spent most of my life in medicine, and the first thing I'm going to tell you is the word AI should never have been brought into medicine. It's neither artificial nor is it intelligent, okay? What it is simply a coding of physicians' intelligence in machine language. So what you should have really named it was coded human intelligence. And because you call it artificial, it's now scaring the hell out of everybody because they think this is this autonomous robot that is going to make a mistake and kill me, right? And so everybody's up in arms about, oh my God, we can't have artificial intelligence in our lives in medicine. The reality is thousands of years of doctors studying, learning, putting in practice common wisdom is now being coded. So I find it very unsavory to use the word AI. It is mathematics, okay? And mathematics is human over time. Look at mathematics history. So what I'm trying to say is get rid of the word AI and call it coded natural intelligence. That is you guys and how you have learned through practice what you do in all the domains of medicine, from imaging to diagnostics to thing, because then the insurance, the people, the patients, everybody will feel safer, because right now they are very upset that they won't have any human contact. And that is the key in medicine too. We are humans. And so anyway, I'm not really asking a question. I'm trying to say, can you guys please get rid of AI and call it something else in all your titles so that the progress of what happens efficiently is more human. So that's my
How would you call it?
I said coded physician intelligence, medical intelligence, any of those things, medical intelligence would be lovely, but don't call it artificial. There's nothing about it is artificial. And it's not intelligent without you.
I just want to add
There's no
something.
intelligence, zero.
What he mentions, actually, I'm having a deja vu moment. My first publication in AI, in healthcare, was in 2010. And I went to a conference very similar to this, about 150 people were there, most of them doctors, and I used the word artificial intelligence in 2010. And I got questions which were very similar to this. There was this dystopian thinking around, oh, AI, artificial intelligence is going to take my job, etc., etc. At least that's the sense I got by the questions I received.
If I might say something right now, in a previous panel, they said like 30% of students are not going into medicine anymore because we're going to have a shortage of doctors because they're thinking this artificial thing is going to take over everything in medicine. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think so. My response to that was, of course, I was in shock, and I decided not to use AI again. So if you see all my papers after that on this, it was machine learning. We used to call it. It was very technical. I'm an engineer background, so machine learning was the words we used. It was machine learning until, as someone rightly mentioned here, Sam Altman changed it for us. The AI terminology. Please don't think clinicians or folks associated with hospitals and doctors and technology here are the ones marketing that term. It's a term that was started, that caught fire. It wasn't started by Sam Altman, of course, but ChatGPT, OpenAI somehow opened up this Pandora's box of what AI is, what AI could be. It is definitely misunderstood. And today we are in that froth. I think a few years from now, that froth will reduce and people will start understanding how it truly impacts lives. We've already seen, somebody mentioned just now, 88% of those AI initiatives are failing, which is very expected, and I'm not surprised because people are throwing, if they have the term, if let's say my name is Ashwin and I somehow had an A and I in between all of that, I would have made that capitalized. That's how companies are running today. Everything is AI. They're doing something on Excel sheet. They call it AI. It's unfortunate. We are also in that same boat, and we've been dragged along with that froth. But I'm very certain healthcare is that steady boat that's going to stay afloat and take care of what needs to be taken care of when it comes to adoption of AI. Because healthcare has gone through many revolutions, and healthcare is filled with highly educated, highly thoughtful people who will make sure this will be adopted correctly.
Yeah, I think I'll have a quick comment. I think, to be honest, it should remain AI because it's artificial. No matter how you code it, no matter how you how you like make it beautiful or make it like a in whatever you do, you cannot compete it or you cannot relate it with human intelligence. There is no relation between human intelligence and AI, and that's why it's artificial. It's just like artificial jewelry cannot compete with like a real gold or real diamond. No matter how you polish it, no matter how you make a great design out of it, but it is artificial and it will remain artificial. I think it has to be artificial. No computer, no program, no like GPU, no like big machines can compete human intelligence. It's just how humans are. The machines are new. Humans are like from the day one of this universe. So it is artificial, to be honest, and it will be artificial. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Really insightful discussion. So my question is, with AI evolving faster than regulatory and clinical systems, when new models of collaboration between medical devices company and healthcare providers are needed to really drive ethical and responsible adoption of AI. So we talked about accountability, clearer frameworks, but is it really the key making these boundaries like outstanding right at the front, like early in clinical kind of training as well?
So sorry, is the question that we're putting boundaries a bit too early in the development
No,
phase?
I'm questioning, is it correct defining boundaries early at the early stages? Is it really the key to drive this kind of ethical and responsible adoption between manufacturers, companies, hospitals, as well as patients?
Well,
How can we improve
yeah,
that?
you can go ahead there, Petri.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's a very good point. There is probably not one single right answer. When I prepared what I call the healthcare convergence framework that I published in my recent book, The Doctor's Future, I emphasize the need for collaboration, and it's multi-agency collaboration that is crucial. Multi-agency meaning the developers, the clinicians, the regulatory bodies, the legislators when it comes to liability, the public when it comes to the perception, how we interact with artificial intelligence, how do we interact with the machines, how do we perceive the interaction between the doctor and artificial intelligence. If you look at it from the perspective of, for example, the manufacturer, you can perceive that we are over-regulated. If you look at it from the point of view of the organization, the patient, the clinicians, we would say we are under-regulated. I think we need to work together to make better regulations that have a balance.
Yeah, I mean, as we discussed before, as for any medical device or medical product, you do have to go through, regulations and approvals and frameworks. I mean, there's no way around that, honestly. I mean, if you look at simple, like any drug, new drug has to go through trials, multiple trials, stage 1, 2, 3, etc. And then only 10 years after that, you can market it. I mean, that was not the case during the COVID vaccine problem, but normally any kind of drug has to go through, multiple steps. And that goes also for medical equipment. Medical equipment and medical devices have to go through approval protocols and quality checks, and there is regulations around that too. And as we said before, AI, when it's used for clinical workflows, it is a medical device by definition. And in fact, in Europe now, every new medical AI product has to go through CE certification mark, as well as ISO standard compliance. And that obviously can delay production, and it does delay production, honestly. And in Europe, we have a problem in that regard. Whereas in other places, there is no such tightness. So, for example, in the US, perhaps it's less regulated, so it's easier to to go there and try it. In other countries as well, we were discussing India yesterday. It's a different framework. So different areas of the world have different regulatory frameworks. But in general, the rule is that you cannot deploy this technology unless you really, have some sort of compliance framework around it.
Okay, thanks.
I think the topic for today was really lovely, and each one of you have shared your insights so beautifully and precisely. I have just one simple question. These days, there are a lot of cases where despite multiple checkups, blood tests, or diagnosis, patient's disease remains, unidentified or undiagnosed. There could be certain signs and symptoms, or probably, misdiagnosis. My question here is, with the growing adoption of AI in healthcare, do you think the challenge of a delayed or misdiagnosis can be effectively and, most importantly, timely resolved?
Somebody want to say something? Yeah, I mean, we said it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, AI at the end of the day, it's pattern recognition, right? This is what it is, and it does help. I mean, we're not against it. We're saying it's a beautiful technology, and it will help a lot in terms of pattern recognition. Reducing the errors. I mean, medicine is riddled by human error. I mean, it's the third leading cause of death is medical error. We have cardiac, we have respiratory, and then you have medical error. That's the third leading cause of death. So, I mean, it will help in that regard, and we should not, be afraid of using that or deploying that for that in that sense. And this what goes back to the efficiency discussion we had, where AI will be helpful in improving efficiency and performance, and medical error falls into that category because it will prevent error. Therefore, it will improve the efficiency of the entire hospital system. Now, how we really detect the errors and the patterns, it's important, to have, again, a good model that is trained properly with a good population, data set that is trained across board, and and the training model is validated so that we can safely deploy it in the hospital. But it will be absolutely helpful. And there will be a problem in times, by the time we adopt the proper model, we will still see medical error happening, but it will be a transition phase where at some point we will deploy it, and at that point you will see an improvement in medical error. However, there will be a time where we're not going to be able to deploy it, and we will still see the medical error that we currently do.
Just to add one point, let's be futuristic. Precision medicine. We know that very often we work with limited amount of data. We do a physical examination, we collect a history, we do some tests. But with the adoption of all the omics, microbiomics, genomics, metabolomics, proteomics, we can greatly enhance our diagnostic capability and our therapeutic capability. And that's something that only AI can help us with. Our human brain cannot possibly analyze such a vast amount of data, such as your whole genome, the amount of microorganisms that interact with your body, your personal lifestyle. So going fast in the future, having AI at our side will definitely help with having better, more precise and faster diagnosis.
Thank you so much for the answer.
Hi, thanks so much for the panel. Quick question for Dr. Nawara. As a director of corporate director in patient safety, I wondered is where the education is helping with the connecting the gap for clinicians, and what are the steps you guys taking in this space? Thank you.
So thank you very much for your question. And as we've mentioned within the panel discussion, education is an integral part of this adoption or implementation of AI. because as even mentioned by some of the panelists, would you allow a physician who didn't go to medical school to take care of you? Would you allow a surgeon who wasn't trained in a surgery to do to open you up and do a surgery for you? It's the same thing for AI. We need to have competencies. We need to include it in our credentialing, our privileging. We need to have multi-tier education levels for all of the staff, for specialized staff, and for leaders. So having comprehensive educational programs as an integral part of the implementation is not a choice, it's a mandate. And it should be regulated through several regulators, and it should be mandated even as a part of the implementation package. And this is where I suggested stewardship as opposed to just simple implementation, because there are so many different factors. Thank
My
you.
question was more specifically on patient safety, and I wonder if you have frameworks already developed for this?
So in terms of patient safety, the work is still ongoing on that. However, indeed, there are KPIs that you have to monitor in regards to patient safety. The number of safety events or near misses even, as opposed to every 1,000 patient encounters. Being able to do the failure modes prior to the implementation of AI solutions and revisiting those failure modes. And this is where a governance body within the organization, the healthcare organization, is very important to review, revise, and give feedback to the developers of those solutions.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Well-
but we have to, I'm so sorry, but
Oh,
we
sorry.
have to cut short. We are already exceeded the time limit. And looks like this was a very interesting panel, and the room is still full of questions and a lot of curiosity on their faces. But these panelists and our moderator, they are going to be available throughout the day, throughout the evening, and of course tomorrow. You can definitely go on questioning them. Can we please have a picture with all of you first? Thank you so much for being a great audience, and trust me,